this week's episode of Assassination Classroom, Isogai, the president of poverty, throws down with Gakushu Asano and the 5 virtuosos, and Principal Asano shows off the true monster within. Before I go any further into this review, you guys are probably noticing that the camera is moving oh subtly from left to right, and that's because Christian desperately wanted to practice out using his brand new slider, because he's going to be using it on a film gig. Christian, why don't you just go ahead and say hello?
Hey everyone!
That's right, he's actually behind the camera as we speak. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get to this review of Assassination Classroom. The main reason to check out this week's episode, without a doubt, is to see all of the amazing English, not only from the Japanese characters, but from these amazingly over-the-top foreign characters who, mind you, are supposed to be portrayed as middle schoolers, like 14 to 15-year-old students, but they're going into the whole JoJo's Bizarre Adventure rules of things, where students look like fucking NFL players. Yeah, this is one of the many funny sight gags that you'll see in this week's episode, which was focusing on another student. In particular, it focused on Isogai, who is always known as like the poor kid in the class. Basically, he's just like Kenny, where he's really popular with the ladies, and he's a hard-working dude. And for some odd reason, this leads to a conflict with Gakushu Asano. I'm not quite sure why they're trying to blackmail him for having a side job and helping out his mom. I don't really see the cultural aspect of that, but it leads to this ridiculous track and field scene where Class E is going to throw down with Class A in this big competition, which is known as Toppling, where these two teams have to go to this big wooden pole, and they have to prevent the other team from getting it knocked over. This is, of course, where a lot of the shenanigans ensue. Now, predictably, of course, Class 3E is the one that ends up winning. However, they do it with some pretty interesting strategies. In fact, there is actually a little bit of a history lesson in this episode, because the reason that they win is because of this guy by the name of Hannibal of Carthage. And if anybody knows their history, he was this guy who led his entire army to victory by taking advantage of the battlefield and knowing everything about its location. And that's basically what they do in this episode. And it's all well and good and everything, but the best part about this scene has got to be that English, man. It is so funny. And it all really starts with Karma Akabane. You see, like I said, the Class A has these foreign students on their team. Some of them being Americans, some of them being from other countries, and the one lead guy who goes by the name of Kevin is this one American dude who speaks only in English, and he speaks it pretty decently. I thought they were going to give him kind of an English accent, but no, it's actually pretty legit. But when he decides to start talking this way to the other students, Karma decides he's going to jump in and start speaking in English as well, and it is a little more stilted, but I have to admit it's real funny, and a lot of other characters end up getting involved in this, and we even get this great scene with Gakushu actually using some of his martial arts skills in this episode, and one of the few action scenes you get from this one, where when they finally arrive at his pole and they're getting ready to knock it over and win the game, he actually ends up drop-kicking a couple of them in the face, and it's just over the top and fun. I really want to see more action like this. And then, of course, there's Itona Horibe, who is the newest member of Class 3E, who decides to jump in at the very end, literally jumping up in the air and toppling and destroying all of them. Now, this is probably the most generic part of the episode. It's at the very end where things just get kind of ridiculous, because, of course, you know that Principal Asano is just not going to stand for defeat. He basically tells these guys, look, you suck. You screwed up. That's the end of all of it. You should be way more upset about everything that's going off here. And that's when Kevin decides to talk back to him. And in an off-screen battle, we get to see that the principal beat the shit out of these students. There is blood all over the place, and it's honestly kind of disturbing that you think that the principal would go to these type of lengths. Different cultures or not, it's pretty freaking messed up, and he gets right in his son's face, and basically is sort of like flabbergasted over the fact that, why aren't you more upset? You should be so pissed off that you're at the brink of death that you should want revenge immediately, and they sort of reveal his inner monster. Whether this is a metaphor or not remains to be seen. Maybe there is something more to this principle that we don't realize, because he really is the perfect antagonistic force next to Koro-sensei. And Koro-sensei this week, I guess they just said, screw the whole disguise eyes thing, just throw a freaking, like, cloak or tarp over him, because throughout the course of the whole episode, he's just taking snapshots of all of the big sports events which are going on, and he doesn't even attempt to put on any sort of a costume. It's really ridiculous. But this episode, again, is focusing on another student of the class that we don't get to spend a lot of time with, and I think that's okay. I really wish they would have relegated it, so maybe that was like the A story and B story, and they maybe give us a little something more, but that's just the way it is. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Assassination Classroom? Like I said, I think the thing I wanted most from this episode was one half of the episode focusing on a student, and the other one maybe focusing a little bit more on the story, because we're 5 episodes into the second season, and it's still mostly just like the student of the week storyline. Like, they still aren't really getting into Koro-sensei's backstory, and we haven't had like any long-running arcs quite yet in the second season. I've been told by a lot of my commenters and subscribers that towards the end, there's going to be one hell of a shitstorm, but still, that remains to be seen. This is a very colorful, beautiful looking show, and there was actually some really nice animation scenes, mostly when Class 3E decided to use their special plan in the pole toppling game where they ran into the grandstands, and then the other ones decided to go after Gakushu, and of course with him attacking the other students, that looked really awesome as well. Another thing that I really loved about this episode was just the visuals alone. This is a series that really takes advantage of its visuals, especially at the very end of the episode when they were talking to the principal, just the overall shadowing of the room, the look of his monstrous face, which kind of took on the form of like this demonic-looking mummy creature with gigantic eyes. Really disturbing, and like I said, I'm not quite sure if that's actually him or that's just some sort of weird, crazy visual they're trying to display for the fact that, you know, Gakushu has to put up with that every day. You keep remembering that that's actually his dad that he's interacting with, and he's lucky that his dad didn't decide to wail on him, because like I said, it was honestly kind of disturbing seeing like all of those like big guys just get completely off-screened with blood just smeared all over his office. Imagine if you were in school and you walked into the principal's office and you saw fucking blood all over the walls. You'd probably shit your pants. So, this was another okay comedic episode of Assassination Classroom, focusing on one of the students. Hopefully the story will pick up a little bit more in the next couple episodes. That being said, I got a lot of laughs out of this episode, especially from the English of the characters, and I just really enjoy this one. So check it out, Assassination Classroom fans. You might see something you'll like. But if you did watch this week's episode of Ask Class, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. Make sure to tell me about your favorite scenes, your favorite characters who appeared this week, and what you want to see from the rest of this anime series. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!